Night draped itself over the city like a velvet shroud, softening the sharp edges of skyscrapers and muting the neon glow that tried in vain to pierce the darkness. From above, the streets looked small, insignificant, inconsequential, a fragile lattice of human life winding beneath the quiet hum of distant traffic and the occasional echo of sirens. In the midst of this sleeping metropolis, there existed a different kind of pulse, a heartbeat that was fast, dangerous, and deliberate. It was the pulse of power, of control, of decisions that carried consequences measured in blood and loyalty. And at the center of that pulse sat Dante Bellini, the man everyone whispered about behind closed doors, the man who ruled the shadows without ever seeming to lift his hand. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, Dante looked out over the docks. The river was black and silent, but the faint smell of diesel and salt hung in the air, reminding him of the world he commanded. His domain stretched beyond the city streets. Warehouses, shipping lanes, clandestine deals, and the invisible chains that bound men and women to his will. He was not merely a boss. He was an institution, a law unto himself, and everyone who mattered knew it. Tonight, the office was alive in subtle, controlled chaos. Phones rang intermittently. The faint clicks of keyboard keys punctuated the otherwise low hum of conversation. Dante's lieutenants moved like shadows across the room, each carrying intelligence, updates, and the occasional urgent crisis that needed to be filtered through Dante's mind before action could be taken. There was Marco, his right hand, calm, precise, the kind of man who could read a room in a heartbeat and execute orders with lethal efficiency. There was Rosa, overseeing logistics and ensuring that his world ran smoothly from the visible to the invisible. And then there were the quieter players, the men and women who waited in the wings, trained for one thing: obedience. Dante's eyes, dark and calculating, scanned the room as he spoke, not with fury or anger, but with the kind of command that did not need to be questioned. Every word was measured, every glance deliberate. "Check the docks," he said quietly, almost to himself, though everyone heard it. "Tell me if anything moves tonight. Not a crate, not a man, not a whisper. I want it all." The room bent instinctively, voices lowered, fingers moved faster, plans shifting and adapting under his gaze. There was a rhythm here, a harmony, even in chaos, and Dante was both conductor and audience. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking beneath him, and allowed himself a moment of thought. The city's pulse reached him even here, behind thick glass and reinforced walls. Every life he touched, every loyalty he held, carried weight. Weight that could crush, but weight that could also protect. Protection. That word was personal tonight. It always was, but tonight it resonated differently. He thought of her, his daughter, Maya, small and fragile, yet resilient in ways he both marveled at and feared. He thought of the woman who had stayed by his side, who had the strength to face danger and the heart to protect what he could not always shield. She was fierce, uncompromising, the kind of presence that unsettled him as much as it grounded him. And then the darkness crept in, the reminder that no fortress was impervious, no strategy infallible. His phone buzzed. He picked it up with a flick of his wrist, eyes scanning the screen, mind already processing. Reports came in, fragmented, dangerous, urgent. The rival family had made a move, subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to be noticed by the sharpest eyes. A shipment delayed, a man missing, a whisper on the street. It was a message thinly veiled, and Dante knew it for what it was, a challenge. He stood, tall, commanding even in silence, and walked to the window. Fingers drummed lightly against the glass, watching shadows move below. Men were already out there, invisible eyes watching, waiting, reporting. Dante's jaw tightened. The city belonged to him tonight, as it had for years, but the threat of violence was always present, a constant companion. He welcomed it. The risk sharpened his senses, reminded him of what was at stake. He did not fear death, not for himself, but he feared loss. The loss of what he had built, the people who trusted him with their lives, the small fragments of normalcy he had allowed himself. And in that quiet, a memory surfaced, sharp and unbidden. His wife, lost too soon, a casualty of the life he had inherited and chosen. She had fought him on it, wanted to leave, wanted a world where their child could grow without fear. Dante had refused. He had been too stubborn, too convinced that control, power, and loyalty could shield them from what they could not see coming. She had died angry at him, and he had lived with the weight of her hatred, her fear, her disappointment, and her love entwined in ways that made him ache even now. The office, the city, the docks, they were all proof of survival, but proof of grief as well. His thoughts were interrupted by Marco's quiet voice. "Boss, updates. Fronts are quiet. Back alley's clear. Surveillance picked up a shadow near the east dock. Unidentified. Might be nothing, might be everything." Dante's gaze narrowed. "Everything," he murmured. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. The room tensed. He walked to his desk, placed his hands firmly on the surface, and leaned forward. "Get eyes on him. Now. And prepare the men. If it's a trap, we're ready." The office fell into a rhythm again, but Dante lingered in thought. The pulse of danger was addictive, intoxicating, but so was the weight of responsibility. Every decision could lead to death or salvation. Every whisper in the dark carried consequences, some immediate, some delayed, but all inevitable. And then, a shadow at the door. She walked in. The woman who defied him, challenged him, and unknowingly captivated him. The room shifted, though no one said a word. Even the lieutenants, accustomed to the unshakable Dante, noticed the smallest imperceptible pause in his movement. She carried herself with strength and purpose, yet there was warmth in her eyes, compassion that collided with the ruthless world Dante ruled. And in that moment, he realized the truth he tried so long to ignore. The danger outside these walls, the violence of the streets, the betrayals waiting around every corner. They all mattered less than the vulnerability she brought into his ordered, brutal world. And he knew, with the clarity that only comes when the city sleeps and shadows dance, that nothing about tonight would be the same again. The pulse of the city continued, the shadows lengthened, and Dante Bellini, Mafia Boss, strategist, and man of darkness, prepared to navigate the first night of a storm that would change everything: power, family, and heart alike. The city held its breath as morning rippled into afternoon. From the penthouse, the streets seemed calm, mundane, ordinary. But the veneer was thin, fragile. Every shadow, every turning corner, could harbor the invisible pulse of danger. Zara moved through the apartment like a conductor guiding a silent symphony. Each gesture measured, every step deliberate. Her hands adjusted locks she had already checked, repositioned surveillance feeds, whispered instructions to Rosa without sound, without movement that would betray intention. Maya's laughter echoed softly in the playroom. Tyler's voice harmonized with it, innocent and unaware, and yet each note carried the weight of fragile lives poised on the edge of disaster. Zara's chest tightened as she listened. She could not allow herself to feel relief, only vigilance. To relax was to invite catastrophe. Through the thick glass, Dante observed from another vantage, a shadow among shadows, his presence unseen. Each footstep, each flicker of motion was calculated. He moved with the awareness of a predator and the discipline of a tactician. The docks awaited him, stretching like a labyrinth of steel and rust, crates stacked like barricades, shadows pooling where light could not reach. His team followed like extensions of his own mind, each man attuned to subtle signals, every glance and whisper a command acknowledged without sound. He did not speak. Words would betray him. Instead, his awareness roamed, mapping escape routes, visualizing every trap, every ambush that might be laid. He could see Vincent already somewhere, watching, waiting, a dark pulse threading through the city, testing, probing, calculating. Dante acknowledged the threat silently, letting it sharpen his focus. Failure was not an option. Not for him. Not for Zara. Not for the children. Zara, meanwhile, navigated her own mental labyrinth. Each action in the apartment was mirrored by an inner sequence of probabilities. If Vincent moves, how quickly will Dante respond? If he hesitates, what is the exposure window? How far can I extend protection without revealing the children's location? She ran scenarios as one might run a complex machine, each cog representing lives she could not afford to lose. She paused in the kitchen, listening. The apartment hummed with mundane sounds. Dishwater, distant traffic, but her mind dissected each one. A step too heavy on the stairs could betray position. A cough might alert a sniper hidden in a nearby building. Her pulse matched the rhythm of unspoken calculations. Every second counts. Every moment matters. Across the water, Dante's eyes caught movement between containers. Shadows shifted, silhouettes blurred, and the instinct in his chest roared. They think they can test me. They think they can find weakness. They do not know the measure of preparation, the precision of loyalty, the depth of the stakes. He adjusted the angle of his approach, signaling silently. Every gesture had meaning. One hand up, a tilt of the head, a shift of weight. Each movement orchestrated, coordinated, lethal in potential. The shadows moved closer, testing the perimeter. Dante anticipated the vectors before they existed. Trap or distraction. His mind played through options. Advance, flank, retreat, hold. He felt the weight of Zara and the children pressing at the back of his thoughts. They were not just people to protect. They were the tether to his humanity, fragile threads that must not break. One mistake, one hesitation, and it is over. Zara, still unaware of the precise danger creeping closer, glanced at Tyler and Maya. They are mine to protect, mine to shield, mine to hold safe in a world that has no mercy. How does one hold safety in the palm of their hands when the storm is inevitable? She straightened, her posture rigid, calm in appearance, but racing beneath the surface. Every ounce of attention she could spare went to the children's emotional state, ensuring their laughter remained unbroken, their trust intact, their fear unknowable. At the docks, Dante's men shifted. Snipers on rooftops adjusted lines of sight. Thermal imaging flickered across screens, red shadows moving through darkness. Each man understood the rhythm, the flow. No words, no hesitation. Marco's voice crackled briefly through earpiece. Front flank clear. Snipers in position. Secondary exit monitored. All teams ready. Dante exhaled slowly, almost imperceptibly. Then it begins. In the penthouse, Zara noticed a subtle flicker in the monitors, a shadow crossing a distant alley. Her heart stuttered. Her mind raced. Dante. She whispered his name like a mantra, hoping it would tether him back to her through distance, through danger. The children played, unaware, laughter floating like fragile music over a chasm of threat she could not name. Elsewhere, Vincent sat in the dim glow of a warehouse, observing, calculating. The men at the docks were pieces on a board. The board is domain, yet even he sensed Dante's hand moving unseen, precise, patient. This is no longer a simple confrontation. It is a test of wills, a battle of wits, a war of patience. He smiled thinly, darkness curling around his lips. Back at the penthouse, Zara's hands were steady as she repositioned cameras and adjusted sensors. Rose's eyes met hers once again, confirmation of shared understanding. The children were safe for now, but the weight of anticipation pressed against her chest. Every heartbeat was a countdown, every tick a warning. Dante's shadow swept through the docks like wind over steel, silent, inevitable. The labyrinth of containers loomed ahead, crates stacked like silent sentinels. He paused, scanning, calculating. Each moment was a measure of life and death. Every step a negotiation with chaos itself. Zara's voice echoed in her own thoughts. Protect. Shield. Guard. Wait. Move. Every motion matters. Every second could be the last. And beneath it all, an unspoken tension threaded the city. A storm gathering between two forces, one tethered to the innocence of children and the other to the ruthlessness of ambition. The stage was set. The players were in motion. The shadows were alive, and the city held its breath. The sun began its slow descent, painting the horizon with streaks of blood orange and violet. Zara remained vigilant, standing silently behind the glass, the children's laughter a fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. Dante maneuvered unseen, his team a ghostly extension of his will, scanning, listening, ready for the inevitable clash. And in that moment, time seemed to stretch. The calm before the storm, pregnant with danger, hung heavy over the city. Every thought, every breath, every glance carried weight, significance, consequence. This was the moment before the first move, the pause before the clash. The city's heartbeat matched their own, a slow, deliberate, deadly rhythm. Zara adjusted the blinds, moved the children a few steps away from the windows, and whispered reassurances she barely felt herself. Dante's figure blended with the shadows, advancing steadily, silent as judgment. Vincent's gaze lingered in the distance, calculating, waiting, feeding on tension. And so the day bled into night. The tension stretched taut, the players poised on the edge of catastrophe. The story of loyalty, love, fear, and survival hung in balance. Every heartbeat mattered. Every shadow was a threat. Every choice carried the weight of lives. The stage was set. The pieces were in motion. And the first confrontation, deadly and inevitable, loomed just beyond the horizon. 反斜杠窗体顶端, the night descended like a velvet shroud, swallowing the city in darkness, leaving only fragmented pools of light from street lamps and distant windows. At the docks, the air was thick with salt and rust, the metallic tang of shipping containers blending with the faint aroma of oil and seaweed. Silence reigned, but it was a deceptive silence, the kind that creaks with tension and hides the steady pulse of preparation. Shadows moved across the jagged edges of crates, careful, deliberate, purposeful. Dante's team advanced, each footstep calculated, absorbed into the rhythm of the night. The warehouse loomed ahead, an imposing structure of steel and corrugated iron. Its silhouette cut sharply against the orange glow of distant industrial lights. Inside, darkness pooled like ink in every corner, hiding threats, traps, and the unknown intentions of Vincent. Dante's eyes scanned every detail, from the broken windows to the warped doors, mapping every line, every obstacle, anticipating every possible angle of attack. Marco signaled with a flick of his hand, and Dante's team split into formation, silent shadows mirroring his movements. They were a single organism, each man attuned to the other's position, each weapon an extension of their combined awareness. Snipers crouched on distant rooftops, thermal scopes glowing faintly, watching, ready to strike at the first sign of danger. Explosives were placed silently, as contingencies, while reconnaissance drones hovered high above, their lenses slicing through darkness, feeding back every heartbeat of movement. Inside the warehouse, Zara sat bound to a chair, her wrists chafed, her blouse torn at the shoulder, a thin line of blood staining pale skin. The single bulb above her head swayed slightly, casting erratic shadows across her face. Vincent lounged against a stack of crates, his gun resting casually in his hand, his smile the calm of a storm about to break. "You're punctual," he said, voice smooth, venomous, calculated. "I appreciate that in a player. Most people are late. You, Dante, understand the rules of engagement." Dante's silhouette appeared at the far entrance, merging from shadow into view. His hands were raised, deliberate, controlled, but his eyes burned with an intensity that made the air feel charged. "Let her go," he said, voice low, measured, the sound of steel wrapped in ice. Every word carried weight, precision, threat. "This ends tonight." Vincent laughed softly, the sound sliding across the cavernous space, bouncing off rusted beams. "Ends tonight? Oh, Dante, you still don't understand. This isn't about endings. It's about who bends, who breaks, who survives." He stepped forward, gun leveling casually toward Zara, a predator toying with its prey. "And right now, you've got one chance to watch your little life slip away." Zara's heart hammered, but her mind remained focused, calculating, timing, positioning, reaction. She tracked Dante's movement through the doorway, the angle of his approach, the subtle shift of his weight that betrayed his readiness. Her thoughts flickered to Tyler and Maya. They're safe. Rosa is keeping them safe. But every second counts. Dante advanced steadily, each step deliberate, absorbing the details of the environment. Crates loomed like silent sentinels. Rusted machinery cast long shadows, and the uneven concrete offered both cover and hazard. His inner monologue ran in tandem with movement. "He's testing me. He wants to see my reaction. He doesn't know the lengths I'll go. He doesn't know what I'll sacrifice. He doesn't know that I've already lost everything that matters once." I will not lose it again. Vincent's smirk widened as Dante moved closer. Bold, I'll give you that. But bravery doesn't save lives. He gestured toward Zara, raising his weapon slightly. The tension was palpable, a taut wire stretched across the room. Suddenly, Marco's signal came. 2 fingers raised sharply. The snipers were in position. Explosives were live. The secondary teams had circled, closing in. Dante's mind raced through contingencies. Front assault, diversion, extraction. Timing, precision, controlled chaos. Keep her safe, neutralize threat, exit clean. He shifted weight, a subtle movement to draw Vincent's attention fully onto him, keeping Zara's captor focused. You want me? Dante's voice cut through the charged silence. Take me, and she walks free. Otherwise, his eyes locked onto Vincent, dark, unyielding, a storm in human form. Otherwise, you'll learn why you should never underestimate me. Vincent's laugh died in his throat. Something in Dante's presence, in the unshakable certainty in his eyes, challenged the predator's confidence. His finger twitched on the trigger, but Dante's gaze held him. In that fraction of a second, the balance of control shifted imperceptibly. The chaos erupted like a thunderclap. Marco's team surged through the rear entrance, moving in perfect synchronization, weapons raised, shouts silenced by the sharp crack of rifles. Vincent fired toward Dante, the bullet grazing his shoulder. Pain flared, hot and bright, but Dante ignored it, calculating every angle of countermovement. He advanced toward Zara, ducking behind a crate, his body moving with lethal precision. Inside, Zara fought panic, forcing her body to remain still, forcing her mind to focus. Every flicker of movement, every shadow that shifted was analyzed. She read Dante's approach, gauged Vincent's reactions, anticipated the moment of rescue. Hold steady. Don't give him a reason to shoot. Gunfire cracked again, bodies moving, metallic smells of gunpowder filling the air. Dante reached Zara, tearing at her bindings, cutting the ropes with swift precision. I've got you. He breathed, voice rough, edged with pain, determination, love. You're safe. I've got you. She leaned into him, clutching desperately, tears streaking her face. Relief, terror, love, and gratitude collided. Behind them, the warehouse descended into chaos as Marco's team engaged Vincent's men. Explosions rocked the walls, crates splintered, shadows screamed with gunfire and motion. The environment became a living battlefield, each second a negotiation with death. Dante lifted Zara carefully, shielding her with his body. He moved toward the exit, each step measured, deliberate, avoiding fire, anticipating traps, balancing pain from the graze on his shoulder. Zara's inner monologue raced. Keep him alive. Guide him. Trust his judgment. Follow his lead. We survive together. Outside, fresh air hit their faces like a promise of survival. The chaos of the warehouse fell behind them, replaced by the cold, open night. Sirens wailed distantly, converging toward the scene, the sound a reminder that the city itself was watching, that help was near but imperfect. Dante stumbled slightly, pain flaring in his shoulder. Zara caught him instinctively, supporting his weight, her mind a maelstrom of fear and relief. No, she whispered. Stay with me. Please stay with me. I'm okay, he rasped, though each word cost him. You're safe. That's all that matters. Paramedics arrived, but Dante's focus remained on Zara, his eyes scanning, calculating. They had survived the night, but the war was far from over. Each heartbeat was a reminder of the fragile balance they maintained, the thin line between life and death, love and loss. The night air carried a quiet promise of continuation, a pause between storms, but the shadows of rival families, of enemies, of unresolved threats still lingered, whispering in corners, waiting for the next mistake, the next vulnerability. And in that moment, Dante and Zara stood together, battered but unbroken, alive, their connection deeper, forged in fire and blood, a bond that would guide them through the darkness yet to come. The city was quiet in the aftermath, but Dante knew better than to trust silence. Even in the seemingly peaceful dawn, threats lingered, crouched in alleys, watching from distant rooftops, waiting for a misstep. The streets were slick with overnight rain, reflecting neon signs and amber streetlights like fractured mirrors. Each drop on the asphalt sounded louder than it should, a reminder that in a world built on fear and control, nothing was ever truly still. Dante leaned back against the sleek black SUV, his shoulder throbbing where Vincent's bullet had grazed him. Marco and the remaining teams circled, checking gear, scanning shadows, the tension of hours past still etched into their muscles. Each man moved with trained precision, but even trained soldiers carried the echo of adrenaline in their bones. Dante's eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the distance, noting the faintest movements, every potential vantage point Vincent's allies could exploit. Inside the vehicle, Zara sat with a blanket draped over her shoulders, still trembling slightly. Her hands gripped the edge of the seat, as if holding herself together physically could anchor her frayed nerves. The faint smear of dirt and blood on her cheek told a story of terror survived. She breathed shallow, quick breaths, replaying every second of the rescue. The weight of her own fear pressed heavily, and yet, alongside it, an unshakable relief anchored her. Dante was alive. The children were safe. For now. Her mind replayed Dante's calculated approach, the way his movements had been fluid, precise, almost preternatural. Each decision he made in that chaos had been a matter of life or death, and he had carried her, the children, and the promise of their survival through the storm of gunfire without hesitation. And yet, beneath the methodical exterior, she had glimpsed something raw, a vulnerability he carried in private, in the moments between bullets and commands. Dante's inner monologue churned with the aftershocks of combat. He's still out there. Vincent may be crippled, but he's not gone. The family's remnants are moving, reorganizing, planning revenge. I can't let them touch Zara, the children, Tyler, Maya. Every decision now is strategic, every movement calculated. If I falter, the cost is more than blood. It's everything we've fought for. The SUV rolled toward the hospital, tires slicing through puddles, the sound sharp and urgent. Zara watched Dante's face, pale from loss of blood, but unbroken in spirit, and felt a tug in her chest she could neither name nor resist. Relief, fear, desire, all mingled in her gaze. She forced herself to focus on the rational, the protective, the logistical. Keep him alive. Keep him conscious. Keep him here. We can't afford mistakes. Not now, not ever. At the hospital, paramedics moved swiftly, their practiced hands a symphony of efficiency. Dante was lifted onto a gurney, his body tense, every muscle a map of pain and instinct. Machines hummed, lights blinked, monitors tracked the steady rise and fall of life in measured increments. Zara clung to his hand as though the act itself could shield him from the world's cruelty. Marco stayed by Dante's side, eyes scanning the room, mind calculating. Every exit, every potential threat, every visitor entering the ward was noted. His loyalty was unwavering, his commitment absolute, but even he knew the threat hadn't ended with the factory's chaos. Vincent's shadow still lingered, his network fractured, but far from extinguished. Zara's thoughts were fragmented, spinning between gratitude and guilt. She should have been stronger, braver, more prepared. I let him risk himself for me. I let the children be in danger. How do I balance fear and action, protection and trust? Her fingers tightened around Dante's hand. She wouldn't let him see her doubts. Not now. Not when he needed focus as much as she did. Hours passed in a haze of monitors, quiet conversations, and a low hum of the hospital's machinery. Dante's consciousness flickered in and out, every movement calculated by his body's need to heal, every breath a reminder of fragility and strength. When his eyes finally opened, they found Zara sitting beside him, exhausted, grief and relief etched into every line of her face. "Hi." His voice was rough, dry, but present, alive. The word alone was a victory, a confirmation of survival against impossible odds. Zara's relief broke like a dam. "You're awake." "Thank God." Her voice trembled, breaking at the edges with emotion she had held at bay. "You're alive. You're here." "I am," he rasped, eyes locking with hers. Because you, because we, because the people I protect matter more than anything." Pain and pride mingled in his gaze, a raw honesty that left no room for pretension. Outside the window, the city continued its indifferent rhythm. Cars moved like flowing metal rivers. Distant sirens cut through the early morning fog, and life pressed onward. But inside that sterile room, time seemed suspended, captured in the small, precise moments of shared survival. Every heartbeat, every whispered word, every glance was a statement of existence, resilience, and the fragile bonds forged in the fire of chaos. Zara leaned closer, pressing her forehead to his arm, drawing strength from the steady pulse beneath her cheek. We survived. We can survive again. Together. The thought, simple yet profound, anchored her. She realized, in that quiet clarity, that the night's terrors had reshaped her. Fear no longer ruled her. Determination and love did. Dante's gaze followed hers, his inner monologue a mirrored reflection of her realization. She's not just part of my life. She's the anchor I never knew I needed, and I will move heaven and earth to protect her. Every threat, every rival, every shadow in the dark, I will confront it, because losing her, losing the children, is unacceptable. In those hours, a plan began to form, not of revenge, but of control, strategy, and preparation. The rival families, Vincent's remnants, and every hidden adversary would learn that Dante was not a man to be underestimated. Zara would learn that while fear is natural, courage and calculated action define survival. The bond between them had solidified, tempered in fire, a force that would shape the coming days and challenges. And as the sun began to climb, casting pale light into the room, it was clear this was not the end. Not of the story, not of the danger, not of the lives intricately linked by blood, loyalty, and love. It was a pause, a gathering of strength before the next storm, a prelude to the battles, both external and internal, that lay ahead. For Dante, Zara, and the children, the world was dangerous, unpredictable, and often cruel. But for the first time, it felt navigable. They had survived the impossible together. And that survival, that connection, would define the strategies, actions, and decisions that would follow. The hospital room had quieted to a fragile stillness, but Dante's mind was anything but calm. Every shadowed corner of the city, every whispered threat, every loyal or disloyal face in his world pulsed in his thoughts. He sat upright, supported by Zara, as the early morning light cut through the blinds, falling in thin, golden lines across the sterile floor. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and tension. Outside, life moved on, oblivious to the undercurrents of violence and strategy flowing like veins beneath the city's surface. Zara watched him closely, noting every twitch of muscle, every subtle flex of his jaw. Her mind churned as much as his, reliving the factory, the moment Vincent had threatened the children, Dante's near-fatal dive into danger. Her chest tightened with a cocktail of fear, relief, and an odd thrill, the kind born from witnessing a man she admired risk everything and survive. She traced her finger lightly along the edge of his hand, feeling the faint tremor from blood loss and adrenaline, and tried to focus on something rational. Planning, fortifying, strategizing. The world outside their room was teeming with threats. Vincent was dead, but his network wasn't. Loyalists could rise in the shadows. Rival families, sensing weakness, would move quickly to test the limits of Dante's command. Every corner of the city was a chessboard, and every person a potential pawn, knight, or queen. Dante's inner monologue reflected the gravity of this awareness. Every ally must be counted, every move anticipated. Any miscalculation, any hesitation, and Zara, the children, and everything I've fought for could crumble. I survived the bullet, but survival is only the beginning. Strategy is survival's twin. Zara, on her side, wrestled with a parallel thought. He's alive. He's here. But the danger hasn't passed. I can't just cling to relief. I need to plan, prepare, ensure nothing like the factory happens again. I need to understand his world if I want to keep everyone safe, if I want to survive alongside him, if I want to protect Tyler and Maya. But how? How do I enter his world without being consumed by it? Marco entered first, quiet, precise, his movements purposeful. "Boss," he said softly, Nodding to Dante, "I've compiled intel. Satellite surveillance, tracking Vincent's known associates, phone intercepts. There's a pattern. A network trying to reorganize." His voice was low, controlled, but the urgency beneath it was unmistakable. Dante's eyes, sharp despite exhaustion, followed every movement Marco made. "Talk," he commanded, fingers drumming lightly on the blanket over his lap. Marco spread out a series of documents, maps, and intercepted messages across the bed table. "This," he said, pointing to a series of numbers and names, "is where the remaining faction is regrouping. Old warehouses, shipping docks, even a couple of private properties. They're testing security patterns, watching your routines. Zara, your presence hasn't gone unnoticed either. We need to adjust, rotate schedules, fortify positions." Zara absorbed every word, nodding slowly, her mind working as she followed along. The enormity of the logistics was staggering. Every guard, every patrol route, every routine of the children and staff was now a factor in survival. She realized fully the complexity of Dante's world, how his life had always been a constant calculation between loyalty, threat, and survival. Dante, meanwhile, was plotting moves within moves. If they move tonight, we need to be 2 steps ahead. If they expect brute force, we faint. If they expect strategy, we change the game entirely. Every man, every vehicle, every shadow, calculated. Zara must never know the half of it, must remain safe and unaware of the full machinery of threat we operate under. The logistics alone were staggering. 20 men, armed, coordinated, each with a precise role, each a lifeline to ensure Zara and the children were untouched. Routes were mapped, safe houses confirmed, and contingencies layered atop contingencies. Supplies, weapons, emergency vehicles, communications, all accounted for. It was an intricate dance of danger and discipline. As they plotted, Dante's thoughts strayed for a moment to the children. Tyler, with his cautious optimism and quick wit, and Maya, fragile yet resilient, learning to speak again after trauma. They were the anchors that made the calculations meaningful, the humans who made all the strategy matter. I can survive bullets, traps, betrayal. But if anything happens to them, nothing else matters. Not revenge, not power, not even life itself. Zara's inner monologue reflected this intertwining of fear and courage. I can't be passive. I need to understand, to anticipate, to protect. I have to trust him, yes, but I can't surrender my own agency. Tyler and Maya need more than protection. They need foresight, strategy, and someone thinking 2 steps ahead of the enemy at all times. The next hour was consumed by methodical planning. Marco outlined shifts, patrols, safe rooms, and emergency protocols. Every door was a potential point of entry, every window a line of sight. Surveillance cameras, communication relays, encrypted devices, they were all accounted for. Dante gave precise, succinct instructions, his voice low but commanding. Zara listened, learning, absorbing the intricacies of control, the hidden ballet of loyalty, protection, and preemptive defense. Hours passed, and the light outside shifted from the soft gold of dawn to the harsh brightness of day. Every step, every plan, every logistical adjustment was a safeguard against an invisible threat. The tension was palpable, unspoken, stretching the room into a liminal space between fear and resolve. And then, Dante paused, studying Zara as she examined a map of the estate's perimeter. His gaze lingered on her face, seeing the strength behind her worry, the determination behind her fear. She's more than I realized. Not just a caretaker, not just an anchor. She's a strategist in her own right. She understands stakes and survival in ways I didn't anticipate. Zara caught his eye and felt a shiver of awareness, an understanding of how deeply they now relied on each other. Not just for survival, but for trust, for life, for the fragile thread of connection that tethered them to something human amidst the brutality of the world they navigated. The scene outside the hospital remained calm, almost deceptively so, but the tension inside the room crackled like static. Every sound, every movement was weighed, analyzed, and prepared for. Dante and Zara were now fully aware that the next move could come at any time. The rival families were regrouping, Vincent's loyalists were plotting, and every moment was a balance between waiting and action, anticipation and reaction. By late afternoon, plans were finalized, contingencies outlined, and the first layer of defensive measures implemented. The children remained under close supervision, unaware of the complex chessboard being laid out around them, blissfully engaged in the innocence of play and learning. Dante, for the first time since the factory, allowed himself a quiet moment of reflection. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of Zara's presence beside him. Every logistical challenge, every threat, every calculation was now tethered to the hope that the family he protected could live, love, and survive. Zara's own thoughts mirrored his, a web of fear, hope, and strategic awareness. We can survive. We have to survive. For them, for us. Every threat we face will be calculated, every move preempted. We can endure this. We must. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the city streets, the scene ended in a tense, charged silence. The calm was fragile, the danger real, and the intricate lattice of strategy and protection had only just begun to be deployed. Dante and Zara, united in purpose and determination, were ready to face the world's next wave. The city breathed quietly under the fading light, the streets stretching long and empty, save for the occasional hum of a distant vehicle. Shadows pooled in the alleyways and under the bridges, hiding both opportunity and danger. To anyone unaware, it was just another evening. But for Dante and his carefully constructed world, it was a battlefield, each heartbeat a countdown to action. Inside the safe house, Dante's eyes flicked across the room with the precision of a predator. Maps, surveillance feeds, and digital schematics littered the table. Marco and the men were silent, disciplined, checking weapons, radios, and communications devices with meticulous care. Each man moved with purpose, their shadows elongating across the walls like silent sentinels, their faces masks of focus. Dante's own hand rested lightly on the grip of his sidearm, an anchor to the present, a reminder of the weight of responsibility he bore. Zara stood near the edge of the room, her hands gripping the edge of the table as if it could tether her to calm. Every inch of her body hummed with tension. She watched Dante, noted the subtle twitch of his jaw, the shadow in his eyes, the barely perceptible flex of his fingers around the gun. He's ready. Every instinct, every move calculated. I need to match that focus. I can't falter now. Not for Tyler, not for Maya, not for him. The plan was layered in contingencies. Two teams would approach the warehouse where intelligence suggested the rival family was staging their first move. Dante would lead the primary assault through the front, forcing a confrontation with anyone waiting to ambush, while Marco and the secondary team would secure flanking positions and cover potential escape routes. Drones had mapped the area earlier, revealing every rusted container, every broken window, every line of fire. Every possible entrance and exit was accounted for, every potential hazard assessed. Dante's inner monologue ran in parallel with the logistics. If they expect brute force, we feign intelligence. If they anticipate strategy, we shift. Every shadow is a threat, every movement a message. Zara, children safe, the men coordinated. Fail at any point, and it's over. There's no margin for error. Zara's mind mirrored his tension. I have to see the patterns, anticipate the gaps. Every heartbeat counts. I have to trust him, yes, but I also have to think. I can't just follow blindly. This isn't a game. This is life and death. The drive to the warehouse was quiet, the city slipping past in shadows and low hums. The men moved like ghosts, aware of every noise, every vibration. Dante sat in the front, eyes scanning the dark streets, mentally tracing every path, every potential sniper perch, every alleyway where danger could emerge. Marco monitored communications, a faint glow from his tablet illuminating his sharp features as he relayed updates on the rival family's movements. As the warehouse came into view, Dante's pulse slowed, not from fear, but from the rhythm of anticipation, the calm before the storm. The building was massive, rusted, and abandoned, perfect for an ambush, perfect for chaos. Broken windows gaped like black eyes, and the fences were lined with rusted spikes, shadows pooling in every corner. Inside, Zara's thoughts moved like rapid currents. They're ready. They've had time to plan, to anticipate. We have to outthink them. Every distraction, every misstep could cost lives. Dante, he has to make it count, and I have to be ready to act if he needs me. I can't fail him. I won't. Dante gave the signal, a barely perceptible nod, and the team split, moving silently into position. Marco's team skirted the perimeter, silent boots on gravel, eyes sharp. Dante led the front, every step precise, measured, the air around him heavy with the unspoken weight of imminent confrontation. The doors loomed ahead, rusted and unstable, the perfect portal into chaos. The first movements inside were shadows dancing against the broken walls. The rival family had anticipated attention. They had planted observers, minor traps, and warning signs. Dante's eyes caught each subtle motion, noting shadows that shifted unnaturally, whispers of movement that betrayed the presence of enemies. They think they know the terrain. They don't know me. They don't know what I'll sacrifice. The ambush erupted with sudden, almost cinematic precision. Flashlights stabbed through darkness, illuminating broken crates and metal beams. Shots rang out, deafening yet precise. Dante's team returned fire in practice sequences, covering each other, communicating through silent gestures, eyes sharp and calculating. Marco's squad flanked, catching the rival family in a crossfire that shattered their expectations. Dante's movements were a symphony of controlled aggression. Each step, each shot, each command was designed to neutralize threat while preserving what mattered most: Zara, the children, his men. He thought of the factory, of the fear in Zara's eyes, of the bullet grazing him. No mistakes. Not here. Not tonight. Not ever again. Zara, still outside the immediate line of fire, coordinated communications, relaying critical intel, noting positions, predicting enemy movements. Her voice was calm, clipped precise, yet underneath, her heart raced like a drumbeat. Every moment was a calculus of risk and protection. I am part of this now. I'm not helpless. I am responsible. The firefight expanded across the warehouse, shadows and light clashing like a living thing. Dante moved through the chaos, shielded men, advanced, retreated, every decision honed by instinct and experience. Marco neutralized a hidden sniper, silently dragging the unconscious body behind a stack of crates. Zara's voice crackled through the radios, guiding movements, spotting threats, the comm center amidst pandemonium. Dante's internal narrative surged. This is more than survival. This is control, protection, strategy. Every life I save strengthens the stakes. Every move I anticipate proves I can hold this world together. I will not let them win. Not now, not ever. The rival family, sensing the precision and discipline of Dante's operation, faltered. Confusion spread through their ranks, a stark contrast to the calculated calm of Dante and Marco's teams. Shots rang out, crates splintered, and the warehouse became a theater of light and shadow, strategy and improvisation. At one point, Dante found himself face to face with a lieutenant of the rival family. The man's gun wavered, eyes wide, betrayal and fear mingled with loyalty and desperation. Dante's own gun leveled steadily, every muscle controlled, every heartbeat a measured choice. A single word, low and dangerous, cut through the chaos. Drop it. The man obeyed, trembling, and Dante's hand stayed steady on the weapon. Zara's voice punctuated the moment through the radio. Dante, flank right. 2 more at the east entrance. Eyes on the wires above, they're rigged. Dante's mind adjusted instantly. Every layer of planning, every contingency, every learned lesson from years of navigating death and betrayal merged into action. He moved like a shadow, silent, precise, lethal yet protective, orchestrating a ballet of violence designed to neutralize without unnecessary loss. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, the firefight ebbing and flowing, punctuated by shouts, gunfire, and the sounds of controlled chaos. Dante and Marco's teams executed their strategy flawlessly, cutting off retreat, forcing surrender, and ensuring the area was cleared. As the last of the rival family's operatives were subdued, Dante stood amidst the wreckage, chest heaving, adrenaline slowly ebbing. He surveyed the scene, The broken crates, the spent shells, the controlled chaos that had become temporary order. Zara approached, eyes wide but focused, her presence grounding him amidst the storm. They met briefly, eyes locking across the distance, a silent acknowledgement of survival, trust, and shared purpose. We survived, but the game isn't over. Every move, now, carries consequence. Every breath is measured against potential danger. And yet we are alive. Together. That is enough for now. The warehouse lay silent now, the echoes of gunfire lingering like a memory pressed into the walls. Smoke curled from broken windows, mingling with the cold night air, carrying with it the faint tang of burnt metal and spent gunpowder. Dante's boots crunched over scattered debris as he surveyed the aftermath, every sense alert, every muscle taut. Victory had been claimed in the most literal sense. Vincent's operatives had been neutralized, but the air was thick with unease. Something had shifted, a subtle undercurrent that whispered of unfinished business, of consequences yet to be faced. Behind the makeshift barricades outside, Marco's team worked with mechanical precision. They secured the perimeter, checked for traps, and ensured that no hidden threats lingered. Each man moved with a calm born of experience, yet even the most seasoned could not ignore the tension that clung to the air. Their eyes flicked to Dante often, seeking guidance, reassurance, and affirmation. But Dante's gaze was elsewhere, focused inward, measuring not just what had been done but what was still to come. Zara had been moved to the back of the convoy. Her seatbelt clicked, her hands gripping the leather edge of the vehicle like she could anchor herself to the present through touch alone. Her mind raced, replaying every moment of the firefight, every shadow, every sound. I should have anticipated more. I should have seen it coming. I should have done something differently. Guilt gnawed at her, sharp and insistent. But beneath the guilt was a quiet pride. Dante had been brilliant, methodical, and he had kept them alive. And yet, I feel powerless. Every time I think we're safe, the danger shifts, evolves, finds us again. Dante sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, eyes forward, expression unreadable. But inside, the storm raged. They were sloppy. Too sloppy in places I would have controlled. My men were precise, yes, but mistakes were made. Too many lives were at risk. Too many opportunities for disaster. And Zara, she's not a soldier. She shouldn't have been exposed. I should have shielded her better. He pressed his lips together, a line of tension and self-reproach. He had survived countless confrontations, but this one gnawed at him differently. It wasn't just strategy and territory, it was personal. Every heartbeat carried the weight of the children, of Zara, of what he had promised to protect. The city outside was a blur as the convoy moved through back streets, avoiding main roads, maintaining a low profile. Streetlights cast fleeting shadows through the tinted windows, painting fleeting pictures of the world beyond, a world that felt both normal and impossibly distant. Dante's thoughts circled the warehouse repeatedly, dissecting every move, anticipating every counteraction the rival family might attempt. They'll retaliate. They always do. And they'll hit where it hurts most. I have to think ahead, 3 steps, 5 steps, 10. Zara, the children. I cannot fail them. Not now. Zara's attention shifted to Marco beside her, his calm presence a stabilizing force. He's amazing, so composed under pressure, so loyal. I hope Dante sees that. I hope he trusts that we can handle what comes next, too. She took a deep breath, trying to steady the rapid thrum of adrenaline in her chest. I can't let fear control me. I can't let them see me falter. I have to be strong for Tyler. I have to be strong for Maya. And for Dante, even if he doesn't want me to think I'm necessary, I am. When they arrived at the safe house, the first thing Dante noticed was the quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that felt like it had been measured, calculated, a silence that promised danger beneath the surface. The men fanned out immediately, weapons drawn, scanning every shadow, every corner. Dante's own movements were fluid, precise, eyes never resting, ears attuned to the subtlest shift of air, the faintest creak of floorboards. Inside, Zara exhaled a sigh she didn't realize she had been holding. The safe house was intact, no signs of intrusion. Yet even as relief seeped into her chest, doubt lingered. Something's off. This is too easy. We're behind in ways I can't name yet. Something's coming, and I don't know if we're ready. Dante moved to the center of the room, removing his vest, loosening his tie, but the tension never left him. He scanned the team, nodded quietly. We survived this one, but the game isn't over. We are behind. Every step we took tonight revealed gaps, flaws in our planning. The enemy is always adapting, always watching, always waiting. He thought of Vincent, the cold cruelty of his calculations, the way he had tested them, the way he had baited them into action. Vincent is dangerous, but he's predictable. He always plays the long game. And so must I. Zara approached him quietly, placing a hand on his arm. The gesture was soft but grounding. I am here. I am ready. Even if we're behind, even if the enemy has the upper hand, I'm not leaving. Not now, not ever. Dante looked down at her, eyes dark, a mixture of weariness and longing. She's more than I deserve. She's stronger than she realizes. And yet, she's mine. I will protect her at all costs. The children's laughter echoed faintly from the bedrooms upstairs. Tyler and Maya were alive, safe, for now. But Dante's mind refused to rest. Every second counts. Every decision has consequence. Every shadow hides potential danger. We are behind, yes, but we are alive. And survival is the first victory. Night deepened, the city sleeping, but the war between families never truly resting. Dante and Zara moved through the safe house in tandem, their steps quiet, their presence a living shield. Marco and the men monitored feeds, checked communications, prepared for the next move. The battle had been won, but the war continued. Every shadow could hide a threat, every whisper of movement a warning. They were behind, yes, but knowledge, preparation, and loyalty could restore the balance. And in that quiet, tense moment, Dante and Zara understood the truth. They were part of something larger than themselves, a living, breathing network of power, love, and danger. They were behind, yes, but the fire that drove them forward had not dimmed. It would not dim. Not now. Not ever. The dawn crept over the city in slow, deliberate increments, painting the skyline in bruised purples and faint amber. Light fell unevenly through cracked blinds and over discarded weapons in the safe house, brushing against cold concrete and steel like a reminder that the world outside hadn't stopped for them. Dante sat in the corner of the living room, one knee drawn to his chest, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. The bottle sat beside him, condensation dripping silently onto the floor. He hadn't slept. He hadn't allowed himself more than a few shallow moments of rest. His body was a machine tuned to tension, trained reflexes, and the raw need to protect. But his mind was racing, running calculations, running possibilities, running futures that always ended with someone he loved in danger. Zara moved quietly through the kitchen, her bare feet muted on the worn wooden floor. She moved with purpose, but her movements were slowed by thought. Every sound, every shadow seemed amplified in the quiet. She had checked the doors 3 times already. Locked, reinforced, secure. And yet the unease had not lifted. We are behind. That truth refuses to leave. I don't know what the next step is, but I know Vincent isn't finished. He never is. She paused at the window, fingers lightly tracing the blinds. Outside, the city breathed, oblivious, indifferent. And yet, every alleyway, every rooftop, every unseen corner could hide a threat poised to strike. Dante's voice broke the silence, low and tense. Morning already? Zara turned, startled by its depth and timbre. His hair was damp from a shower, a dark sheen across his forehead, and the bruise from last night's bullet grazed the curve of his shoulder. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and yet tired, exhausted in ways the night could not fully mask. It's early, she said softly. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the anxiety she tried to mask. I didn't hear you come in. I never left, he replied. His eyes met hers, intense, unyielding. I've been planning. He gestured to the floor, the maps, the phones, the notes, each piece a thread in a larger tapestry of survival and retaliation. Every angle, every entry point, every likely counterattack. We're behind. I can feel it. And if we don't move fast, it's going to cost someone everything we've fought for. Zara exhaled, letting herself sit at the table, hands folded, mind spinning with possibilities she didn't want to think about. He carries this burden alone, or maybe he thinks he does. But I'm here. I have to be here. I have to be part of this, part of him, part of the solution, not just the consequence. Outside, the city woke incrementally. The distant hum of traffic, the faint clatter of early deliveries, the occasional siren. All mundane, all ordinary, and yet for them, it was a fragile veil over chaos. Dante moved to the window, scanning rooftops, checking lines of sight, tracing the potential approach of any threat. Marco and the men were already coordinating with satellite feeds, monitoring street cameras, and double-checking safe routes. Every moment was measured. Every decision was a thread in a web that could snap in an instant. Have we considered the North Warehouse? Zara's voice broke his concentration. He turned, a slight frown on his face. The one by the docks. Yes. If Vincent has allies remaining, that could be his fallback. Or his next bait. She spoke quietly, but with precision. Every word carried thought, observation, and unspoken fear. Dante's lips pressed into a thin line. I've already factored that. But you're right. We've been reacting. Always reacting. That's why we're behind. We need to anticipate. Not just defend, but predict. Anticipate the next move before it even exists. His eyes narrowed. And Zara, you've been too exposed. I can't allow that to happen again. She flinched slightly, not from the words but from the care beneath them. The warning. The truth that he saw her as more than just a partner in strategy. He saw her as someone worth shielding, someone whose life mattered beyond the mission. And yet, I want to be here. I won't be sidelined. I won't hide behind fear. I am part of this, part of him. The morning dragged on, filled with hushed discussions, precise movements, and subtle signals. Marco's team ran simulations of potential ambushes, running through hundreds of variables, each possibility met with counteraction, each threat weighed and accounted for. Dante moved through it all, present, calculating, correcting, instructing, but always with Zara's presence in mind. He couldn't afford a moment of distraction, not with the children at risk, not with Vincent lurking somewhere in the shadows. And yet, amidst the logistical calculations, there was an undercurrent of something unspoken, something raw and fragile. Every glance between Dante and Zara carried a weight, a tension that neither addressed aloud, but which hung in the air, invisible but palpable. Their partnership was no longer just strategic, it was emotional, dangerous in its own right, threading through the stakes of life and death. One misstep, one lapse of focus, and everything could unravel. As the sun climbed higher, the first movement came, not from the city, not from their enemies, but from within. A knock at the door, subtle, deliberate, almost imperceptible. Marco's hand went to his holster instinctively. Dante's entire body tensed like a coiled spring. They exchanged a brief glance, eyes locking in a silent understanding. It was a signal, a ripple, a test. Zara held her breath. Is it an ally? A scout? Or the first thread of Vincent's revenge? The knock came again, more insistent this time, and Dante moved forward, hand on the doorknob, every muscle prepared to act. He twisted the lock slightly, peered through the peephole, and his jaw tightened. The shadow outside was familiar, yet it was an unknown. A figure in a trench coat, face obscured by a hood, hands empty, or pretending to be. The moment stretched, tension thickening the air until it felt like it would snap. Dante's pulse was steady, trained, but the undercurrent of dread ran beneath it like wildfire. Behind, we're behind, and we don't know how many more pieces Vincent has already moved against us. He motioned subtly to Marco, who flanked him, weapon ready, and then to Zara, who instinctively stepped back, blending into the shadows of the safe house. Stay calm. Stay inside. Let me handle this. Let me absorb the threat. The figure tapped the door lightly, and Dante's voice rang out, controlled, authoritative, cold. State your business. A pause. Then, a voice smooth, neutral, carrying no hint of fear, but no trust either. Delivery and a warning. Dante's eyes narrowed, a chill crawling up his spine despite the heat of the morning sun. He turned to Zara briefly, offering a glance that was reassurance and warning in equal measure. We're behind, yes, but we're alive. And survival is only the beginning. We need to act, anticipate, and strike. Vincent won't wait. Neither can we. The city's pulse was steady, indifferent, masking the storm brewing in the shadows. The sun had climbed higher, shedding light on streets that carried no trace of the chaos planned for them. Yet every corner held a potential threat. Inside the safe house, Dante moved like a man possessed by both instinct and calculation. The figure at the door had vanished after delivering their message, a cryptic warning wrapped around a package no larger than a briefcase, but the weight of it pressed on Dante's chest. Every fiber of him knew that Vincent's reach extended farther than they had imagined. Zara sat at the edge of the table, hands clenched, knuckles white. She had peeled the tape from the top of the package with trembling fingers and unfolded a series of photographs. They weren't just pictures, they were statements. Images of their supply lines, their safe routes, Marco's men patrolling, even Dante in quiet moments when he thought no one was watching. Each photograph was a declaration, "We know you, and your advantage is gone." Her eyes lifted, meeting Dante's, and she spoke softly, but with sharp focus. "He's been watching us for longer than we thought. Every move we made, every precaution, he anticipated." Dante's jaw clenched. The whiskey from the night before lingered on his tongue, bitter, burning. He didn't need it to feel the fire in his veins. He moved to the map table, spreading out the blueprints of the city, every known hideout, every potential ambush site. He traced lines with long, deliberate fingers, each motion a calculation of distance, timing, angles, and variables too numerous to count. We're behind, and we've been reacting, not initiating. That ends now. Zara rose, stepping closer to him, shoulder brushing his. If we go on the offensive, Vincent will expect it. He wants us to make the first mistake. I know. Dante's voice was low, controlled, but the edge in it betrayed the storm inside. Which is why we won't just move, we'll mislead. False trails, multiple teams, decoys. We make him think he's winning, all while we take control. Marco and the men will run 3 separate operations tonight. One to flush out his lieutenants, one to secure our supply lines, and one to draw him out. If he shows himself, we'll be ready. The words hung in the air, heavy with strategy and danger. Zara could feel the weight of it pressing down on her, but she also felt a thrill of purpose, a clarity that she hadn't allowed herself to feel in weeks. We are not just surviving, we are fighting. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I might actually win something, if only barely. The phone rang, sharp, shrill. Marco's voice came on the line, clipped, precise. "Front surveillance reports incoming. We've spotted movement near the east dock. Unknown vehicle, armored, following a predictable pattern. Could be a decoy. Could be him." Dante's eyes darkened. He moved to the window, scanning rooftops, alleyways, the movement of traffic below. Every instinct, every sense, every piece of training screamed at him. Vincent is playing, testing, waiting, watching. He wants a reaction. Zara joined him, silent, observing, thinking. If Dante reacts too quickly, we expose ourselves. If we wait too long, the children, the team, everyone at risk. The hours stretched thin. Plans were checked, rechecked, and then checked again. Every weapon, every vehicle, every escape route, every man and woman assigned to a role, accounted for and double-checked. Marco coordinated with the satellite feeds, cross-referencing movements, traffic, and potential blind spots. Dante's inner monologue churned like a furnace. He's clever. Too clever. But I am relentless. I will find him. I will end this. And no one I love gets hurt on my watch. Not Zara. Not Maya. Not Tyler. Zara, meanwhile, moved to the children's rooms, checking doors, windows, ensuring they were secure. Tyler's eyes were wide, trusting, unaware of the looming danger, and Maya clung quietly to her doll. I can't let them see fear. Not yet. I have to be calm, strong, unshakable. If they sense panic, she swallowed hard, forcing herself into composure. We are their fortress, their shield. Their world must be safe, even if ours isn't. Night fell, heavy and thick, cloaking the city in darkness. Dante's team assembled in silence, weapons ready, armor in place. Every step was calculated, every breath controlled, every thought focused on one goal: draw Vincent into a position where he could be neutralized without risking innocent life. Marco ran last-minute simulations on a tablet, whispering instructions, checking angles, lines of fire, and timing down to the second. Dante turned to Zura, his face a mask of calm, but the storm behind his eyes was evident. You're staying here. Safe. No exceptions. Her hands found his, gripping tightly. I'm not hiding. Not while you're out there. Then help me plan. Help me anticipate every move, every possibility. But when we act, you stay hidden. She nodded, feeling the weight of his gaze, the pull of his presence, the unspoken trust and danger intertwined. We are bound in this. By choice, by circumstance, by necessity. And maybe something else. Hours passed in a tense blur. Every distant noise, every vehicle, every shadow in the corner of a street drew Dante's attention. Every report from Marco, every update from his men on the ground, was a thread in the web of this night. The city itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, the first true signal. Movement at the northern warehouse, a flicker of light against the concrete, a silhouette that didn't belong. Dante's heart accelerated, the tension in his body coiling tighter. Marco's voice came through the earpiece, calm but urgent. It's him. All teams in position. Wait for my signal. Dante's eyes met Zura's briefly, a silent promise and warning in the glance. He stepped into the shadows, weapon in hand, mind sharp, body tense, every muscle poised for immediate action. The air was electric, charged with danger, strategy, and the unspoken knowledge that the night would decide everything. Night settled over the docks like a bruise, dark, swollen, and waiting to burst. The sky above the northern warehouse was a thick sheet of smoke-stained clouds, trapping the tension beneath it. The air felt heavier than the hours before, carrying the faint scent of oil, salt water, and something colder. Anticipation sharpened to a blade. Dante Rossi stood in the shadows beside an abandoned forklift, the metal rusted and flaking under the dim streetlight. He looked like a man sculpted from the night itself, still deliberate, every sense tuned so sharply that the world felt amplified. His ears caught every distant clang of metal, every shift of wind, every subtle echo. His breathing was controlled, shallow, purposeful. This is it, he thought. The first real move. And I cannot afford a single mistake. Across the yard, a faint glimmer of headlights streaked across a far-off warehouse door. Too dim to be careless, too intentional to be random. Dante didn't move, didn't blink. His hand tightened around the grip of his weapon, slowing only when he felt his pulse threatening to overpower his accuracy. Marco's voice cut through the silence in Dante's earpiece, low and steady. Target movement confirmed. East entrance. No heat signatures on the south side yet. Your call. Dante scanned the area again, eyes narrowing. It wasn't the entrance that bothered him. It was the stillness. Vincent's operations were loud, messy, impulsive. This was precision. Every movement choreographed. Every light carefully placed. Vincent is adapting. He thinks he's evolved. Good. Dante inhaled, slow and cold. Let him think he's winning. Meanwhile, in the safe house miles away, Zara watched the live feed with her jaw tight and her hands curled against her knees. She sat beside Marco's temporary digital hub, a collection of screens, heat maps, and infrared feeds flickering with ghostly silhouettes. The screen in front of her showed Dante, the silhouette of a man ready to walk into a storm. She swallowed thickly. He doesn't know how deeply he affects people, she thought. He acts like he's carved out of iron, but every step he takes pulls something inside me tighter. Maya lay asleep in the room behind her, barely breathing, curled around her doll, as if it were armor. Tyler sat nearby, headphones on, watching cartoons that tried, and failed, to drown out the world outside their walls. You should sit, Marco murmured as he passed behind Zara, reviewing thermal patterns. This is going to be a long night. I can't sit, she whispered. Not when he's out there. Her eyes stayed glued to the screen. Back at the docks, Dante motioned to his men with silent hand gestures. 2 split left, 2 right. The remaining 3 fanned behind him in a tight formation. Marco's new recruits, young, sharp, and loyal. They trusted Dante with their lives. It wasn't obedience, it was faith. A faint metallic tap echoed from the east wall. A shudder, then another, then silence. Dante lowered himself behind a stack of crates, eyes narrowing. That's not metal shifting in the wind. That's code. Someone signaling from inside. The tap came again, 3 short, 1 long. Dante's mind scanned old patterns, rival signals, outdated enemy communications. Not Vincent's style. Not any of the usual suspects. His pulse sharpened. A warning. Someone inside was warning him. Before he could decipher more, the east door cracked open just an inch. A sliver of light cut through the darkness. A shadow stepped out, small, quick, but it wasn't an enemy soldier. Not a gunman. Not a scout. A young boy, barely 14. He stumbled forward 2 steps, looked left, then right, and locked eyes with Dante across the yard. His face was pale, terrified. Dante felt it immediately. Trap. The boy opened his mouth, not to speak, but to scream. A scream that never made it out. A bullet cut through the night and silenced him instantly. He crumpled in the doorway like a discarded puppet. Zara gasped from the safe house as she watched the boy fall on the screen. "No," she whispered. No, he's just a child." Marco's jaw tightened, eyes dropping. Vincent is sending a message. Dante didn't move, didn't flinch. His rage was too still, too cold, too silent. "You killed a child to lure me out? Vincent, I'm going to break you." But the docs did not wait. The real attack began. The warehouse lights exploded to life, blinding in an instant. Men in full tactical gear swarmed out like shadows, ripping themselves free from the walls. Muzzle flashes lit up the night in sharp, staccato bursts. Dante dove behind the crate stack as bullets tore through the wood, splintering it into clouds of dust and shrapnel. "Positions," he barked into the earpiece. His men responded instantly, splitting into 2 coordinated flanks, firing back with control bursts. The night transformed into a battlefield, bullets crackling, metal screaming, darkness swallowing and spitting out the flashes of combat. Zara felt her heart pounding as she watched Dante roll behind a forklift just as a bullet struck the metal near his head. Sparks flew. She grabbed the edge of the table, knuckles white. "Stay alive," she prayed silently. "Please just stay alive." But Dante was not losing. He moved like a predator born in violence, but trained in discipline. Every step was fluid, efficient, lethal. He calculated angles faster than bullets could reach him. He used shadows as armor. He vanished and reappeared like he was part of the darkness itself. Marco watched the feed with a clenched jaw. "He's outnumbered by at least 15, he muttered. "This is a purge attempt." Zara's breath hitched. Meaning Vincent wants him gone tonight. Back at the docks, Dante slid behind a container and tapped his earpiece twice. Team 2 now. Across the lot, his hidden squad sprang to life. They burst from behind a parked truck, flanking Vincent's men from the opposite direction, raining fire with perfect accuracy. Men shouted. Bodies fell. The ambush collapsed. But Dante's eyes stayed on the warehouse door. The boy's body lay still, blood pooling beneath him. The guilt pressed against Dante's ribs, but he shoved it down. "Later. I'll mourn later. Right now I end this." A loud clang echoed from deep inside the warehouse. Heavy, metallic, deliberate. Dante knew that sound. A loading bay gate opening. A vehicle. Marco's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Dante, heat signature. Massive. Something's coming out." Dante stepped out from behind the container, gun raised. The gate lifted fully, and the headlights hit him like a punch. A matte black armored truck roared out, engine growling low like a beast let loose. The side of the truck carried a logo Dante recognized instantly, an old symbol scorched into the metal. A raven. Vincent's mark. The truck swerved, accelerating toward Dante with deadly speed. Zara screamed into the screen of the safe house, her voice cracking. "Move, Dante! Move!" Dante held his ground. For a second that stretched into eternity, he stood in the path of a charging vehicle, as if time itself had slowed around him. His heartbeat became a slow drag, a steady drum. His mind narrowed to a razor point. He waited, and then he sprinted forward, straight toward the truck. The men watching him gasped. Even Marco froze. Dante's boots slammed against the pavement in rapid bursts as he charged head-on. He waited until the last possible moment, muscles coiled like steel, and dove sideways, sliding beneath the truck's side panel as it roared past him. The truck missed him by inches, plowing through the crate stack he had been behind just seconds earlier. Wood exploded, scattering debris across the yard. Dante rolled to his feet, weapon raised, firing several rounds into the back tires. One bullet pierced the rubber. Another struck the axle. The truck fishtailed, screeching as it spun wildly into a concrete loading column. Metal screamed. Sparks cascaded. Dante advanced, eyes blazing. Vincent's men scrambled from the wreck, disoriented, and Dante took them down with precise, brutal efficiency. Marco's voice came through the feed, half awe, half disbelief. Madman. He's a madman. Zara wiped tears from her eyes, hands trembling. No, she whispered. He's a fighter. He's surviving. The warehouse yard fell silent except for the crackle of burning crates and the groaning metal of the disabled truck. Smoke curled into the air. Bodies lay scattered. Dante stepped forward slowly, scanning for movement. Then movement. Not from the enemies on the ground. From the truck. A figure stepped out from the back of the armored vehicle. Slow. Calm. Unbothered by the chaos. Tall. Composed. A face Dante recognized instantly. Luciano Moretti. Vincent's second-in-command. The man Dante had once trusted. The man who betrayed him. Luciano's voice carried easily across the burning yard. Long time, old friend. Dante's fingers tightened on his gun. Zara's heart stopped. Marco's face drained of color, and the night held its breath once more. The yard was quiet now, but the quiet was only a prelude. Smoke curled lazily above the shattered crates, the metallic scent of blood and burning rubber mixing in the chilled night air. Dante stood with his gun leveled, chest heaving, eyes locked on Luciano Moretti. Every muscle in his body tensed, coiled for movement, for violence, for survival. Luciano walked forward slowly, almost casually, but Dante saw the calculation behind every step. Years of knowing each other, growing up in the same criminal underworld, the same bloody streets, the same bitter lessons, had carved a mutual understanding into them. Each knew the other's reflexes, the other's weaknesses, the exact moment a finger would tighten on a trigger. And yet, here they were. Opponents now. Enemies. Betrayers. You look the same, Dante thought, but everything has changed. And nothing has changed. Luciano's dark eyes glinted with the same arrogance Dante remembered from their youth. He stopped 15 feet away, hands unclasped at his sides, weapon tucked discreetly but ready. You always like showing off, Dante, he said smoothly, voice cutting through the smoke. Never thought I'd see you survive that. He gestured toward the wrecked truck and the scattered bodies. Lucky maybe, but luck only runs out once. Dante's jaw tightened. He didn't respond immediately, letting the tension build, letting the night stretch thin, letting Luciano feel the weight of his stare. Luck runs out when I decide it does. Across the yard, Dante's men had regrouped, low, tactical, eyes scanning every shadow. Marco whispered through the comms, steady, sharp. Dante, perimeter secure. No reinforcements yet. Luciano is alone. Alone, Dante thought. But he's never alone in cunning, never alone in deceit. He shifted slightly, letting the darkness hug him like armor. Every step he had taken tonight had been precise. Every calculated risk had led to this moment. And now it was time to confront not just the men who threatened his family, but the ghosts of his past. You've changed, Luciano said, tilting his head slightly, studying Dante. You wear that stoic mask, but I see the fire. I see her. I see the Rossi who can't let anything or anyone touch his own. You're still the same boy I grew up fighting with, just more dangerous. Dante's mind raced, not just with strategy, but with memory. He remembered the nights spent on empty rooftops, counting bullets, counting stars, dreaming of a life beyond the blood. He remembered the deals made and broken, the friends lost and found, the blood spilled for promises no one could keep. And now, he remembered why he fought. Not for reputation, not for power, but for the people who mattered. Zara, Tyler, Maya. Everything else was expendable. I don't fight for fire anymore, Dante said finally, his voice low, deliberate. I fight for blood I won't let anyone take. And right now, that blood is mine to protect. Luciano smirked. And so you believe that's enough to stop me? Before Dante could respond, a sudden, faint movement at the edge of the yard caught his eye, a subtle shift in the shadows near a stack of shipping containers. He tracked it instantly. Someone else was here, always a step behind, yet always present in the folds of danger. Vincent's backup, he thought, or a trap within a trap. Dante's grip tightened on his weapon. His mind split into dozens of calculations at once. Every angle, every possibility. Then he made the choice. Confront first, evaluate second. He advanced forward, slow, deliberate, forcing Luciano to react. Luciano's smirk faded, replaced with a calculating coldness. He raised his gun. You'll never forgive me for what I did. But maybe tonight, I'll make you understand. The tension snapped like lightning. Both men moved simultaneously, fast, precise, deadly. The gunfire echoed through the dockyard, ricocheting off metal and concrete, punctuated by the shouts and chaos of men running for cover. Sparks erupted as bullets met steel. Shadows danced wildly as the two former allies turned enemies weaved through the wreckage, firing, dodging, and reading each other's every micromovement. Dante's inner monologue sharpened, focusing with the clarity of a predator. He's testing me. He wants me to make a mistake. He underestimates the weight of what I carry. I carry more than anger. I carry a promise. And promises are not broken. Luciano's own thoughts mirrored the same intensity, but his motivation was different, more personal, more cruel. He has everything I don't. He has loyalty, he has love, he has family, and he still moves like the boy who once dreamed bigger than the streets. He'll pay for that. Tonight he pays. Gunfire continued, punctuated by sudden silence when each man ducked behind cover, reloading with surgical precision. Every footstep, every breath, every glance carried meaning, danger, and weight. Each had learned the other's weaknesses, but tonight, stakes were higher than past betrayals. Death loomed closer than ever. Suddenly, Dante spotted an opening, a small gap between two shipping containers, illuminated by a single flickering lamp. He pivoted, rolling to cover, and sighted Luciano in a brief moment of exposure. He squeezed a trigger, firing 3 rapid rounds. Luciano dove behind a steel drum just in time. He hissed under his breath, realizing that Dante wasn't just angry. He was surgical, disciplined, almost merciless, and it terrified him more than any bullet could. Meanwhile, Dante's earpiece buzzed. Marco's voice, urgent. Dante movement. Southeast corner. Another team. Could be Vincent. They're coming fast. Dante froze for a heartbeat, considering his options. Protect Zara. Protect the children. Neutralize Luciano. And survive long enough to confront Vincent. He didn't hesitate. Dante pushed forward, exploiting every shadow, every angle, forcing Luciano back toward the crumbling edge of the dock. Each step was deliberate, weaving a deadly dance with a man who had once been like a brother. Luciano cursed under his breath, realizing too late that Dante's resolve wasn't fueled by vengeance. It was fueled by love, loyalty, and survival. He had underestimated what Dante would risk for those he cherished, for those who gave his life meaning beyond blood and power. As they clashed again, the night seemed to hold its breath. The warehouse lights flickered. The distant sirens began to wail, mingling with the echo of gunfire and shouting. Shadows stretched, twisted, and merged with the darkness that now seemed alive around the dockyard. Dante lunged forward, finally pinning Luciano against the container. The two men's faces were inches apart. Sweat, dirt, and gunpowder mixed on their skins. For a fleeting moment, the past hung between them. The childhood fights, the shared blood, the bonds broken by betrayal. "You will not hurt my family," Dante whispered, voice low, deadly. Luciano's smirk was gone, replaced by a mask of recognition and fear. You've changed," he said, trembling. Dante's eyes narrowed. "I've been perfected by what matters." A single shot rang out. Not from Dante, not from Luciano, but from the shadows. Both men flinched. Another layer of danger, another layer of chaos. But Dante didn't let it break him. He adjusted, recalibrated, and advanced again. The fight was far from over. The night was far from over. And the dockyard, now soaked in tension, blood, and the scent of fire, waited, silent and hungry, for the conclusion of two men who had once been brothers, now standing on the precipice of war. The safe house sat on the outskirts of the city, shrouded in shadows, nearly invisible from the road. Its nondescript brick facade betrayed nothing of the chaos that had led Zara and the children here. But inside, Every second throbbed with tension. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and burnt coffee, the faint hum of an old refrigerator, the only sound apart from their collective, silent anxiety. Zara paced slowly, every step measured, yet her mind raced faster than her feet. She tried to appear calm for the children, but the weight of the phone call, the image of Dante pinned and bleeding, and the reality that Vincent was still out there, still scheming, pressed down on her chest like a physical force. Tyler sat cross-legged on the worn rug, eyes wide, constantly glancing at the window. Maya clung to Zara's side, small hands gripping her motherly figure, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's out there. He's hunting him. And I can't do anything," Zara thought, clenching her fists. "All I can do is wait. All I can do is pray he survives." Her mind flicked to Dante's expression earlier, the intensity of his gaze, the way he moved like every step could be his last. That thought both terrified and grounded her. She needed him alive. Needed him for Maya, for Tyler, for herself. He wasn't just a protector. He was the center of a life she hadn't realized she'd been building around him for weeks. She knelt beside Tyler, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "It's okay, baby. You're safe here. We're all safe." Her words felt hollow, even to her own ears, but Tyler's small nod, the slight squeeze of her hand, gave her a fragile tether to reality. Maya, sensing the tension, shifted closer to Zara, her small face buried in her arm. "And Zara, is Daddy okay?" Her voice cracked, the question small but weighted, as if the enormity of what was happening had already found its way into her childlike perception. Zara swallowed hard. "He's strong, Maya. He's very strong. He'll come back to us. He has to." The minutes stretched like hours. Every sound outside, the distant honk of a car, the rustle of leaves in the wind, sent the children flinching. Each knock at the door or sudden car engine set Zara's heart racing. She imagined Vincent waiting in those shadows, his mind scheming, his bullets aimed, waiting for any mistake, any slip. He's patient. He always is. He'll wait for the exact moment to strike. Across the room, Tyler whispered to Maya, his small hand clutching hers. "He'll be okay, Mia. He's Uncle D. He's scary, remember?" Maya nodded, trying to believe him, trying to find courage in the strength of a child's faith in the man who protected their world. Zara's eyes roamed the room, taking in every shadow, every corner, every possible vantage point for an intruder. She had placed makeshift barricades against the doors, improvised locks, even a few hidden weapons. She wasn't just a caretaker now. She was a strategist. She was responsible for the lives of 2 children whose entire world rested on the survival of a man in a factory far, far away. Her inner monologue spiraled into strategy. "If Dante needs me to hold this down, I have to be ready. The kids need me to stay calm. I can't let fear paralyze me. Every sound, every shadow could mean something. I need to stay sharp, keep them calm, and wait for him." Suddenly, a faint knock at the side door made them all jump. Zara froze, breath caught in her throat. She motioned for the children to stay low, their small bodies sinking behind the sofa. Her hand moved to the pistol she had tucked under the arm of her chair. "Who is it?" she called, voice steady, betraying nothing. A familiar voice whispered through the door. "It's Marco. Open up." Zara exhaled sharply, feeling a small release of tension. Marco's presence meant Dante was still alive, at least for now. She swung the door open, letting him in. His eyes flicked to the children, checking their safety first before settling on her. "Dante?" Zara asked, voice trembling slightly. "Alive," Marco replied, concise, eyes sharp. "But he's pinned. Luciano's men tried to corner him, but he's holding." His jaw tightened, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "We're getting him out. Just hold him here. Keep the kids calm. This is where the danger won't touch them, for now." Zara nodded, her hands shaking slightly as she guided Marco to the couch. "I've done everything I can," she said. "The kids are there trying. They're kids," Marco said firmly. "And you're their anchor. That's what matters. Nothing else." Her mind raced again, imagining Dante moving through the chaos, weaving through shadows, bullets, and betrayal. He's always 2 steps ahead, always calculating. He won't fail. He can't fail. He won't. Hours passed in tense, anxious waiting. Zara alternated between checking the children, pacing the room and listening for updates through the secure line Marco had brought with him. Every fragment of sound, the distant siren, a car backfiring, a lone shout from the street, was amplified, interpreted, feared, and then a burst of static over Marco's earpiece. Dante moving. Approaching extraction point. He's hit, but moving. Repeat, he's moving. Zara's heart lurched. Relief and fear collided in equal measure. She grabbed Maya and Tyler, holding them close. "He's coming back," she whispered. "He's coming back to us." The hours stretched into night, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Every small noise sent shivers through the walls of the safe house. But Zara's resolve remained. She was a protector now, a strategist, a mother figure, a beacon of calm in a storm of violence. She knew every second counted, every decision mattered, and she would not fail. As the first faint sounds of gunfire echoed from the city streets, signals of Dante's extraction, Zara prepared. She adjusted the children behind the barricade, whispered instructions in urgent, calm tones, and steeled herself for the moment Dante would walk through that door alive. He will survive. He has to. He carries more than himself out there. He carries our world, and I will hold this world safe until he returns. The night deepened. Shadows stretched long across the safe house floor. The children whispered quietly to each other, holding onto Zara's presence. Every sound of movement outside made their hearts jump, but Zara's calm, measured voice kept them tethered. And somewhere in the darkness, Dante fought through his own hell, moving closer to them, moving closer to home. And for the first time in hours, Zara allowed herself a small thought. We will survive this night. We will survive because he will come back. He must come back. The night stretched on, velvet dark but alive with tension, the kind of tension that clings to the skin, settling deep in the chest, making every breath shallow and deliberate. Dante's boots struck the wet concrete in the abandoned warehouse district like a metronome. Each step measured, calculated, every ounce of him focused on one unyielding truth. Zara had to live. Every fiber of his being screamed that he could not fail her, could not fail the children. Around him, shadows moved with him, part of the architecture of the night, part of his plan. Marco's team fanned out silently, every member aware of the stakes. Their communication was wordless, perfected over years of working in tandem, honed in drills that mirrored life and death reality. Each door, each corner, each shadow was accounted for. No risk was too small to ignore. No second wasted. Inside the warehouse, Vincent waited, or so Dante assumed. But in that world of mirrors, of traps laid a step ahead, appearances were dangerous, deceptive. Dante paused just inside the threshold, hand resting lightly on the pistol at his hip, feeling the weight of it, the cold metal a reminder that violence might be necessary, but only as a last resort. He inhaled, tasting the metallic tang of anticipation mixed with the night air, and then he moved forward. He didn't speak, not yet. He didn't need to. Each footfall, each subtle movement was a statement, a warning. Vincent was a predator by reputation. He would test Dante, and Dante would meet him, not with reckless aggression, but with precision, patience, and patience that had been honed through decades of inherited ruthlessness. And then he saw her, Zara, bound to a chair, gagged, her wrists raw, small bruises darkening against her skin, her hair clinging damply to her temples. Her eyes were wide, bright, and scared, but there was also a spark there, a spark Dante had nurtured, unknowingly, simply by surviving long enough to get here. Relief surged through him, nearly enough to make him falter, but he swallowed it, swallowed everything except his need to act. He reached her side, cutting the ropes, pulling her close, arms steady but hands trembling in intensity. "I've got you," he whispered, his voice low, iron-strong but soft enough for her to hear, to feel. Zara collapsed into him, sobbing, shaking, clinging to the one person who had carried them all through hell and back. Her inner monologue ran fast, chaotic, impossible to untangle. "He's hurt. He's alive. He made it. He hasn't failed me. Not this time. I can let go, even for a second, and let him be the one who carries us. I've trusted him with everything, my life, my children, my heart, and he hasn't failed. Not even when the night tried to swallow us whole." Dante's own thoughts were equally storming. She's here. She's alive. God, I thought I'd failed her. Every second I didn't act, every plan I reconsidered, every pause. I can't let her die again. Not her, not Tyler, not Maya. Not ever. I'll tear this world apart if I must, but they will live, and I will carry them through the storm. Behind them, Marco and the others were systematically clearing the warehouse. Gunfire, sharp and precise, echoed through the hollow space, cutting through the thick tension like knives. Vincent had left a trail of chaos, his men scrambling, hiding, or falling, and yet the warehouse remained a deadly maze. Marco's team moved like ghosts, disciplined and controlled, securing every exit and every potential hiding place. Each shout, each command, each suppressed exhale was part of a larger ballet of violence that Dante had orchestrated without thinking, instinct taking over. The city outside was beginning to wake to the consequences of the night. Sirens wailed faintly, distant but growing. Paramedics and police would arrive soon, summoned by someone aware of the danger but unaware of its depth. Dante's mind ticked through contingencies even now, preparing for the aftermath, preparing for every threat, every ripple of retaliation that could follow. Zara's body was pressed against his chest, fragile but alive. Her tears soaked his shoulder, and yet there was a strange, desperate comfort in it, a reminder that she was real, that the moment was real, that they had survived the impossible together. Her voice broke the silence, tremulous, scared but alive. Tyler? Maya? Are they? They're safe, Dante said, firm, certain. He moved his hands to her face, brushing hair from her temple, wiping away the streaked tears with his thumbs. Far away. Protected. Hidden. No one touches them now. Not while I'm alive. Rosa emerged then, having ensured the children's safety and orchestrated their removal with quiet efficiency. They're safe, she repeated, a reassuring echo of Dante's words, a confirmation that the nightmare had ended for now. The air outside the warehouse was thick with the metallic tang of gunfire, the bitter, acrid smell of spent gunpowder, and the faint whisper of sea salt carried on the wind from the nearby docks. The night hung heavy, almost oppressively, but the danger that had loomed over them for hours had finally shifted, evaporating into the tense quiet that follows a storm. Dante staggered slightly as he stepped into the open, his shoulder burning, his mind still whirling with adrenaline, relief, and disbelief. Behind him, Marco's team swept through the last shadows of the factory, ensuring no threats remained, the soft clicks of guns being reloaded and boots on metal echoing like a rhythm of war. Zara's eyes were wide, still scanning every shadow, every corner, every faint movement that might signal Vincent's return. Her legs shook, though she refused to show it, gripping the edge of the doorway as if holding herself upright were an act of will alone. When Dante emerged, she felt her chest tighten, a mix of fear and raw, unfiltered relief twisting together in her stomach. He was alive. He had fought, bled, and come for her. Alive. He turned toward her, his expression unreadable for a long, tense moment. Then recognition, warmth, and an unspoken promise broke through. He was alive, and that was all that mattered. His hand reached for hers, and when their fingers met, the world seemed to pause, sudden, fragile, like the calm after a hurricane. Zara, he rasped, voice hoarse, throat tight from shouting and exertion. I've got you. You're safe. All of you are safe. She let out a shaky breath, her knees threatening to buckle, and she stumbled forward, throwing herself into his arms. He caught her instantly, strong, careful, holding her as if letting go might shatter everything. She buried her face into his chest, drawing in the scent of him, of leather, sweat, and determination, feeling the heat of his body pulse through her. Tyler and Maya. Her voice was barely a whisper, drowned by the noise of the city around them and the ringing in her ears from the gunfire and adrenaline. They're safe, Dante promised, his hand brushing her hair back, his eyes locking on hers with a fierceness that made the fear in her chest loosen just slightly. They're with Marco and the others. Nobody touches them. Not tonight. Not ever. She trembled in his embrace, letting herself be entirely vulnerable for the first time in weeks. The storm of fear, tension, and worry that had been coiling in her chest began to untangle, just a little, because Dante was here. Alive, standing, fighting, breathing. He took a careful step back, still holding her arms, studying her face with an intensity that made her pulse spike. "You stayed calm," he murmured, almost more to himself than to her. "You stayed precise. I knew exactly what you were thinking, even without words. You're incredible." Zara shook her head, half laughing, half crying. "I didn't feel incredible. I felt like I was dying inside, waiting for you to—" Her words caught, throat closing. "Waiting for you to come back for me." He cupped her face, thumb brushing over her cheek, gentle, grounding. "I always come back," he said simply, fiercely, "no matter what. Always." In that moment, the chaos around them, the sirens, the distant shouting, the faint smoke rising from the warehouse, felt distant. The world had narrowed to just the two of them, their ragged breaths mingling, hearts beating a chaotic rhythm in sync. The fear was still there, sharp and raw, but it was tempered by the knowledge that he had won. They had survived. Zara pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes, searching, memorizing, needing to know this was real. "Dante, I—" He silenced her with a gentle, firm hand on her shoulder. "No words. Not yet. Just hold on. We're not done, but right now we're alive. That's everything." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Zara let herself breathe. She felt the tension in her shoulders ease, the pounding in her chest slow. She was safe. The children were safe. And Dante was alive. Behind them, Marco's team began herding them toward the armored vehicles waiting just off the street. The night was alive with motion, shadows shifting, voices low but urgent, radios crackling with updates, engines starting, tires crunching gravel. Every movement was calculated precise. Every step kept them closer to safety, farther from the threat that had haunted their every moment. Zara allowed herself to be guided, holding Dante's arm as they moved. Her mind was a whirlwind, reliving the terror, the near loss, the moments when the red had danced across the window, the merciless precision of Vincent's threats. But she also felt a flicker of something else. Hope, fragile but persistent. Hope that they could finally have a moment of peace. As they reached the vehicles, Marco gave Dante a brief nod, silent but loaded with meaning. They knew the stakes. They knew the danger. But they also knew the outcome of tonight. Vincent was finished. His organization dismantled. The immediate threat removed. For now, Dante slid into the driver's seat of the armored SUV, Zara beside him, hands brushing in a brief, intimate contact that promised more than words could convey. Behind them, Marco and the team organized the children into the back seats, checking weapons, scanning the area, maintaining vigilance. Every movement was purposeful, a choreography honed over years in a life of constant threat. Zara's eyes scanned the city streets, lit intermittently by street lights and the distant glow of the docks. She thought of the night's chaos, the fear, the close brush with death, and she realized something profound. Survival wasn't just about strength or skill. It was about trust. Trust in those who would risk everything for you. Trust in the people who would stand in front of you when the world threatened to collapse. And in Dante, she trusted him completely. He caught her gaze, a faint, tired smile tugging at his lips. "We're going home," he said quietly. "You meet Tyler, Maya. We go home, and we start again." Her chest tightened, tears prickling the corners of her eyes. Home, a concept that had seemed impossible, fleeting, abstract for so long. And yet, here it was within reach. A family, safety, love, imperfect, dangerous, and utterly theirs. As the SUV rolled through the quieted streets, the night stretching ahead, Zara allowed herself to imagine the life that could come next. Days of laughter, of teaching Maya to run and play freely, of seeing Tyler thrive without fear clouding his bright, eager eyes. Nights of quiet moments with Dante, simple but profound, the kind that stitched broken pieces of their hearts back together. The city lights passed in a blur, reflecting in Zara's eyes as she leaned back, letting her hands rest lightly on Dante's. She exhaled slowly, finally allowing the tension of weeks, months, to ease if only slightly. The danger wasn't gone. It never would be. But for this night, for this ride, for this fragile, stolen peace, they were alive, together, and that was enough. And in the soft, trembling silence of that armored vehicle, with the faint hum of the engine under them, the world felt almost whole again. Almost like it could be theirs. The morning sun crept through the hospital blinds, soft and golden, spilling warmth across the white walls and sterile floors. Dante stirred first, eyes fluttering open to see Zara sitting beside him, still, steadfast, her hand wrapped around his. Relief washed over him in waves, a quiet, heavy peace after the chaos, fear, and violence that had defined the past weeks. "Morning," Zara whispered, voice rough from sleepless nights, from crying, from sheer exhaustion. "Morning," Dante rasped, his voice hoarse but steady, the faintest hint of a smile touching his lips. He reached for her hand, holding it gently, grounding himself. We made it." "We did," she said, her own voice trembling, but with certainty. The weight of fear, of threats, of endless running and fighting, had lifted, if only slightly. The children were safe. Vincent was dead. Their lives, fragile and battered, could finally begin again. The door opened softly, and Tyler and Maya appeared, faces bright, eyes wide, hesitant but hopeful. Tyler ran first, flinging himself into Dante's arms, clinging like a lifeline, and Maya followed, wrapping both Zara and Dante in her small, strong embrace. Laughter, tears, and joy mingled in the quiet hospital room, a balm to every scar, seen and unseen. Zara watched them, her chest full, her heart breaking and mending at once. Dante caught her gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. They had survived darkness, violence, betrayal, and terror. Now, they had each other. Weeks later, in the calm of their restored home, the estate finally quiet after months of tension, Dante knelt before Zara, a small black velvet box in his hands. The diamond inside caught the morning light, brilliant and flawless. "Zara," he said, voice steady, full of love and certainty, "I've been ready for weeks, for months. I want you. I want our family. I want this life, with you, with the children, forever. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes, blurring the world for a moment. "Yes," she whispered, barely able to speak. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, perfect, meant to be, and kissed her deep and tender, full of every promise they had fought for, every fear they had survived, every hope they had dared to dream. Tyler and Maya cheered, laughter spilling into the room, filling every shadowed corner with light. Marco smiled in the doorway, quietly approving, as Rosa entered, eyes full of tears, a soft laugh escaping her lips. "About time," she said, voice warm and full. And so, at last, the world shifted. The danger, though never entirely gone, felt distant. The past, brutal and unyielding, had led them here, to family, to love, to safety. Imperfect, fragile, but theirs. Dante held Zara close, and she leaned into him, her heart full. The children gathered around them, and for the first time in years, the estate was filled with laughter, with warmth, with hope. The sun shone through the windows, the guards patrolled at a careful distance, and the world turned, quiet and safe for a moment. They were together, and that was enough. More than enough. Everything they had fought for, everything they had risked, had led to this home, family, love, and a future waiting to be written. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. They were alive. They were together. And for the first time in what felt like forever, they were finally free to simply be Dante, Zara, Tyler, and Maya. A family forged in fire, hardened in danger, and made whole in love.